Baby. How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the College Football Podcast with your host, Alec Pecado. This is Season 2, Episode 2 of the College Football Podcast. Today, I will be going over my full preview of every single college football playoff game with a stats prediction, score prediction, and talking about, after the college football playoff games, talking about a couple of the transfer portal signings that have happened. But first of all, let's get into the first college football playoff game preview. And it is the 8th seed Ohio State at home against the 9th seed Tennessee. This is going to be by far the best game of the college football playoff, in my personal opinion. And there's a few people that do agree with me on that said statement. And here are some thoughts about Ohio State, Tennessee. This is the first time they've met since 1996. And I feel like there was very few people that were born and bred to be an Ohio State fan, unlike me. But I'm not going to get into that. I am going to say I think this is going to be a very good game. And I think both quarterbacks are going to put up a show. And we are going to get to the stats first. On the Tennessee side, I think Nico Iamaleava is going to throw for 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, with Dylan Sampson running for 60 yards, rushing for 60 yards, and a touchdown. And Dante Thornton going for 80 yards and a touchdown. And then the other 2 touchdowns are probably going to be to maybe Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson's probably going to get a receiving touchdown as well. And maybe one of their tight ends gets a touchdown, or it's a rushing touchdown for Nico. On the Ohio State side, I think Will Howard throws for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns. And you have the combination of Judkins and Travion Henderson that each rush for 90 yards and a touchdown. Yes, I think Ohio State's offensive line is going to step up in this game. And then here's the big part. Your 2 top receivers, I think Jeremiah Smith has not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. And he goes for almost 100 yards receiving. So that's 3 of the 4 touchdowns for Will Howard. And then the last touchdown goes to Emeka Egbuka, who also has almost 90 receiving yards. And here's a couple keys for Ohio State before I give you the prediction of the score. And that is that Ohio State, in order to win, limit penalties, limit time of possession for Tennessee. No stupid penalties. Don't whack somebody in the head after the play's over. If Tennessee's trying to coax you into taking a dumb penalty, walk away. Let Tennessee be the one to get flagged. Get your playmakers involved early and often. Force turnovers for Ohio State. Now to the Tennessee side of things. For Tennessee, there's 2 big keys here for Tennessee. 1 on offense, 1 on defense. On offense, get Dylan Sampson the ball early. If you want to beat Ohio State, the only way I think you're going to do that is if you get Dylan Sampson the ball early and often, whether it be in the pass game or running the ball 3 or 4 times to start the game. And then defensively for Tennessee, you got to make sure you don't let Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Ibuka or Carnell Tate, for that matter. And I left Tate out because I think Carnell Tate is going to have a good game, but I don't think he's going to be one of the ones getting a receiving touchdown for Ohio State. But if Tennessee could do that, I think they win. But here is my score prediction for the Ohio State-Tennessee football game. I think Ohio State ends up winning 48-34. 48-34 Ohio State. And like I said, and here's why I think they won. I think they limit the number of turnovers they have, and I think they force, like I said, Nico to throw at least one interception, and the defense gets 3 or 4. They get a lot of pressure on Nico, and they force him to run the ball, and he fumbles a couple times. And then on offensively, Ohio State, they slow down the tempo of the game, and they run the football on consecutive plays, not up the middle, and then they pop a big pass over the top. And that's how I think Ohio State wins. Next, we've got Texas and Clemson. So the 5-12 matchup in the playoff. And yes, Clemson was the last team in. And here's some of the stats I have for this game. I think Quinn Ewers throws for 340 yards passing. And he throws 3 touchdowns. And then you got the running back Wisner for Texas goes for 89 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then you got Matthew Golden, the wide receiver. He catches 2 of those touchdowns from Quinn Ewers, and he has 94 yards receiving. And you have Gunnar Helm, who goes for 60 yards 60 yards receiving and a touchdown. On the Clemson side, Cade Klubnik. I think Klubnik has a fairly clean game, no interceptions. He throws 3 touchdowns and passes for 384 yards, as well as Phil Moffitt goes for 80 yards and 2 total touchdowns. He has one of the receiving touchdowns from Cade Klubnik. The other receiving touchdown goes to Antonio Williams and TJ Moore, and they both go for 80 yards receiving and a touchdown each. And I think Texas wins this game. I see people saying Clemson doesn't stand a chance. I disagree. I think Clemson's going to keep it closer than people want to say they will. I think Texas wins 48-41. And again, with all of these, you could put your score and stats predictions in the comments down below after the video, during the video. But now we get to the 7-10 matchup between Notre Dame and Indiana. And here's my stats for Notre Dame. Riley Leonard, I think, throws for 249 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jadarian Price rushes for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then you have Bo Collins, goes for 110 yards and a touchdown, which means so the 2 total touchdowns for Price. One's a receiving touchdown, one's a rushing touchdown, and then you have Collins that has a receiving touchdown, and the other touchdown for Riley Leonard is a rushing touchdown. So that's where he gets his 3rd touchdown from. For Indiana, you got Curtis Rourke, I think those for 285 185 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you have Justice Ellison, who runs for 74 yards and a touchdown. And you have Elijah Sherratt, who goes for 2 receiving touchdowns and 90 yards receiving, and then 74 yards receiving from Omar Cooper and a receiving touchdown. And I'm going to say this, the way Indiana's defense has showed up all year, this is the biggest game of the year for Indiana. Can they keep Notre Dame under that 35-point threshold? I think they can. And you'll see what I think the final score is going to be here in about 30 seconds. But for Notre Dame, in order to make people believe that they're not the frauds like we think they are, after losing early in the season to Northern Illinois, which is still, to me, the worst loss to this day, I think that Notre Dame has to be physical and run the football consistently. Now, here's my score prediction. I think Notre Dame wins 28-24 against Indiana. And we get to the 6-11 matchup to finish out the first round playoff predictions. Penn State, SMU. And this is the lone upset I have in the first round of the college football playoff this year. Penn State, Drew Aller. I think he has 3 total touchdowns and 2 interceptions. One of those touchdowns being a rushing touchdown. And I think Katron Allen and Nick Singleton each rush for 74 yards and a touchdown. Then you have Tyler Warren, who is the best receiver on Penn State. He has 84 receiving yards in both of Drew Aller's passing touchdowns. He is on the receiving end of 2 passing touchdowns for Drew Aller. Now we get over to SMU. Kevin Jennings, who has played really good this year. I think he throws for 4 touchdowns and 349 yards passing. And then you got Brashad Smith, 84 yards rushing and 1 rushing touchdown. Then you've got Hudson, one of their wide receivers. I think Jordan Hudson goes for 84 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Then you've got Roderick Daniels, who goes for 84 yards and also goes for 2 touchdowns. And the winner of this game will be SMU 47-38. And now I'm going to talk about a couple, and I mentioned on my Twitter the other day, a video was coming out about a couple of guys that have already committed in the transfer portal. And we're going to take a look at those said guys that are in the portal that have already committed to new schools. And I will give you my thoughts on it. Let's get to quarterbacks. Committed. Okay, so Zach Calzada is the first one, and Calzada, I don't think he's going to start at Kentucky because they got Malik Murphy and they still got Brock Vandergriff. I do think it's a good move down the line for Calzada. Maybe he competes for the starting job this year and doesn't get it. But if the other 2 guys struggle, which I will talk about Malik Murphy in a second when we get down to him. But I think Zach Calzada, this is a lateral move for him. He's probably going to be a backup. Jake Jensen going from Southern Cal to Montana State. I actually like this move for Jensen because he'll get to start at Montana State and he gets to put on a show down there and then potentially go back in the portal next year and go back up to the Power 4 level. Then you've got Ethan Hampton. This one's simple. He's going to Illinois to be a backup. And yes, Luke Altmaier is coming back next year. And I like this move. Then you've got John Mateer following his offensive coordinator to Oklahoma. He was at Washington State last year. This is the best move. This is the best option for him. It was either Oklahoma or Miami that was going to get John Mateer. And Mateer going to Oklahoma, I like it. They finally get that quarterback so they don't have to play Michael Hawkins, and Michael Hawkins can redshirt. And Mateer joins his offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. And then this is the one I'm going to talk about. Colorado. I understand they got Juju Lewis, but Caden Salter is going to start next year. And I mentioned in my tweet that I made the other day how I liked this move for Salter for two reasons. One, if he plays well, it boosts his draft stock. He was probably going to be a 5th or 6th round pick if he went into the draft this year. And now he's probably going to be, if he has a really good year at Colorado, who knows? His draft stock could be boosted to 2nd, 3rd round, maybe early 4th. Dexter Williams going from Georgia Southern to Kennesaw State. I like this. This kid barely played. And again, I said this in the previous 2 transfer portal videos. Ignore the star ratings because some of these kids are hidden gems in the portal. And like Dexter Williams, he will do really good at Kennesaw State. I have faith in whoever the new coach is at Kennesaw State that he will do good there. Dylan Longergan going to from Alabama to Boston College. They lost. So there's a backstory to this. They lost Boston College, as you'll see in a few minutes, lost Thomas Castellanos to Florida State. So what did they do? They went in the portal and got a quarterback by the name of Dylan Longergan. And Longergan, this was not one of the teams I had going after him. I did not think Boston College would be the one to get him, but I think he's going to do well in that Bill O'Brien offense. Mitch Griffiths. This is the 3rd or 4th team college he's been at. He was at Wake Forest. He was at, I believe, Penn State. Now he's at Texas Tech. Is he going to start at Texas Tech? We'll have to wait and see. This is a low impact move for me for Mitch Griffiths. And then you got Luke Cromenhoek going from Florida State to Mississippi State. I'm puzzled by this move by him. I know he wasn't going to start at Florida State next year because you had a couple quarterbacks there and they got Castellanos, like I said. And I think that this is a bad move for him. He should have stayed at Florida State. And I'm gonna go into more elaboration about Caden Salter. If y'all haven't watched any tape on Caden Salter, highly recommend it. He was a really good quarterback at Liberty. Like I said, I think he's gonna do really well at Colorado, and that's gonna boost his draft 2026 NFL draft stock. And he will be really good. And if you didn't hear, I will be having a watch party for the Ohio State Tennessee football game Saturday night at 8 o'clock on this YouTube channel. Stop on by. But that's going. And if you haven't subscribed or subscribed yet, please subscribe. 2025 is a big year for this YouTube channel, and it's going to be a big year for the MVPs for college football, because we are starting. And you can go watch the video where I gave you a preview of what the MVP chart is going to look like in 2025. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend going and watching it. I will tag it in this. I will put it in the description of this one and the end cards. But if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a like. That'll wrap up today's episode of the College Football Podcast. I will see everybody back here at 5:45 for a Wrestling is Awesome podcast episode. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.